When my Uncle Silas died, the family erupted with speculation about his fortune. He wasn't just rich, he was the kind of man who owned sprawling estates, drove cars people only ever saw in glossy magazines, and was whispered to have investments hidden across the country. His death, everyone assumed, would mean wealth raining down on the rest of us. My cousins marched into the lawyer's office practically salivating over the $35 million estate. I didn't share their hunger. My mother, Mara, had always taught me that dignity outweighed money, and since my father passed, I've been working long hours at the lumber mill just to cover bills and care for her. I wasn't dreaming of cars or vacation homes, but I hoped Uncle Silas might have left me something small, something that showed he had seen me. The lawyer read the will. Roland, the eldest cousin, was handed a lakefront mansion and a fleet of antique cars. His sister Cynthia received a trust fund that would carry her through life and luxury. Their smug grins filled the room. When my name was called, I sat straighter, bracing myself for even the smallest gesture of security. Instead came the words, "To my nephew Eldon, I leave one old metal toolbox, contents unknown." The room erupted. Roland sneered, "Perfect, the loser gets the junk." Cynthia piled on, "Guess Silas thought you'd be more at home with trash than treasure." Their laughter stung. My face burned, but I said nothing. I carried the battered, rusted box out of that office while everyone else clutched deeds and bank statements. Every step reminded me how small they thought I was. What none of us realized then was that the real story wasn't about their riches or my humiliation. It was about what lay hidden in that box, something that would change everything. Outside, their jeers still echoed in my ears. I wanted to believe Silas had some purpose, but in that parking lot, all I felt was humiliation. At home, Mara was waiting. Her health kept her from attending, and I hadn't wanted her to see how the others mocked me. When I came in, she gave me the tender smile she always saved for heavy moments. "What did your uncle leave you, Eldon?" she asked. I set the box on the table with a dull thud. "This. Just this." She studied it carefully, her gaze not on the dents and rust, but on the slump of my shoulders. "Do not be ashamed," she said softly. "Sometimes the smallest gifts carry the greatest meaning." I wanted to believe her, but my pride was bruised. I had spent years breaking my back at the mill, paying her bills, holding our fragile household together. I had hoped Silas might see that, might acknowledge it somehow. Instead, I'd been made the family fool. To understand my bitterness, you need to know who Silas was. In town, he loomed larger than life, his fortune built from shipping and real estate, his suits worth more than my yearly wages, his cars always new. At family gatherings, he didn't boast, but his presence made everyone else feel small. As a boy of 10, I admired him. I still remember a reunion where he handed Roland a leather glove, Cynthia a shiny bicycle with ribbons. I waited, hoping for even a toy car. Silas placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "One day, Eldon, you'll understand not all treasures shine." Then he walked away, leaving me empty-handed. Back then, I thought he had simply forgotten me. Later, I wondered if maybe he saw something different in me, something money couldn't reward. But at the will reading, when I heard Rusty Toolbox, I felt like that boy again, overlooked, unwanted. Roland and Cynthia had always carried themselves like royalty. Roland boasted of his failed ventures, wearing arrogance like armor. Cynthia was sharp-tongued, forever criticizing, seeing my work at the mill not as loyalty, but as proof of low ambition. To them, the toolbox confirmed what they already believed, that I was destined for scraps. Back home, our peeling linoleum floors and curling wallpaper told the story of struggle. My mother's medications lined a counter, quiet reminders of bills that never stopped multiplying. I had no mansion, no savings, no car worth envying. Just my labor, my pride, and my promise to care for Mara. The toolbox sat on our table like an unwanted guest. I cooked beans and cornbread, the same meal we always shared, while my mother hummed and sewed a button back on my shirt. She never complained, always reminding me that a man is measured not by what he has, but by how he carries himself with nothing. And yet, the sting lingered. It wasn't just my cousin's laughter or the empty inheritance. It was the fear that Silas, like them, had never really seen me. That in his eyes, I was a man meant for scraps. But Mara's words held me steady. The smallest gift can carry the greatest meaning. I didn't understand yet, but her faith stopped me from tossing the box into the shed and forgetting it. Instead, I kept turning it over in my hands, tracing the rust, noticing its strange heaviness. It weighed more than it should have. More than metal. It carried a secret, one waiting to surface, a secret that would soon rewrite everything I thought I knew. The box sat there on the table for days, silent but unyielding, like a shadow waiting to be opened. Its presence ate at me in ways I couldn't name. Every time I passed the toolbox, I felt a mix of anger and curiosity. I told myself it was just another family insult, a final reminder of my place. Yet the weight of the thing kept nagging at me. 3 nights after the will reading, Roland showed up. He propped himself in my doorway like he owned a place, silk shirt immaculate, perfume announcing him before he spoke. "So, cousin," he drawled with a grin, "how's that treasure treating you? Found any golden nails yet?" I forced a polite smile while he edged closer, sneer dropping into his voice. "That's all you'll ever get, Eldon. Junk for a junk man." He told me Cynthia had been rolling with laughter at dinner, just imagining me polishing that rusty box. My mother's clipped warning, "Roland, that's enough," flew over him. He shrugged, tossed a mocking wave, and left with his laughter trailing down the street. I sat hard at the kitchen table and opened the toolbox again, hoping for a miracle. Inside were ordinary battered tools, a hammer with a splintered handle, a few wrenches, a cracked tape measure, nothing valuable. Still, when I lifted the box, I felt the same odd heaviness, and a faint rattle came from bottom. I took it to the bedroom and tapped the underside. The sound was dense, not hollow, and when I pried at the seams with a screwdriver, I found a hidden panel. Beneath it lay a small compartment holding an old flip phone, dusty, scratched, antenna bent. I pressed the power button. To my surprise, the screen glowed and the phone rang. My heart stopped. My mother peered in. She urged me to answer. I did. A deep, steady voice said, "Eldon, if you're hearing this, it means Silas trusted you. The real inheritance begins now." I choked on my reply. "Who is this?" I asked. "You'll know soon enough," the voice said. "Follow the instructions. Do not tell anyone. This is between you and the man who knew your worth." Then the call cut off. My mother's hand on my shoulder felt like an anchor. "If Silas hid that phone, it's not a joke," she said. Her belief settled in me. The humiliation from Roland and Cynthia faded into the background, replaced by a spark of possibility and fear. If what the voice promised was real, my cousins would stop at nothing to take it. That night I barely slept, the phone warm on the nightstand. Morning found me hollow-eyed and thinking fast. By evening the phone rang again. The same voice gave instructions. A storage facility on the edge of town, Unit 17. The code was my father's birthday. The voice ended before I could ask anything. My mother's grave nod confirmed what I already suspected. Silas trusted me for a reason, and I had to be careful. By 9 o'clock, I was in my old pickup, the toolbox locked in the back, and the phone in my pocket. The roads were silent. At the storage lot, the phone buzzed. "Use the year you graduated high school for the gate." I punched in the digits, the gate side open, and I parked by Unit 17. The keypad blinked red until I entered my father's birthday. The light turned green, and the door unlatched with a heavy clank. Inside, everything smelled of dust and oil. Shelves lined the walls. A tarp hid something large, and boxes were stacked in corners. The phone instructed me to look under the tarp and read the letter on the desk. Beneath the cover, I found 3 metal crates stamped, "Property of S. Holloway." Beside them sat a desk with one envelope addressed simply, "Eldon." The letter from my uncle hit like a blow and a bomb at once. He explained why he'd left the estates in cash to those who wanted them, because it suited them, and that he'd entrusted me with a real legacy, records, maps, and evidence of investments that required careful management. He'd chosen me for my hands, my humility, and my loyalty. "Protected," he wrote. Sitting there, the earlier shame began to crumble, and something heavier settled in. Responsibility. The crates were heavy and padlocked with SH initials. I tried to lift one, and it hardly budged. I fetched a crowbar, wedged it under the lock, and prepared to force it open. Whatever lay inside those crates was going to demand everything of me, and I'd already crossed a line I could never step back from. When I lifted the lid, I froze. Inside, stacked neatly in rows, were gold bars, dozens of them, glowing even under the dim overhead bulb. I had only ever seen gold in pictures, but its unmistakable shine made my knees nearly buckle. The second crate held bundles of cash wrapped tight, the edges still crisp despite the years. The third was different. Leather-bound journals, maps tied with twine, and a set of old keys. I pulled one journal free and flipped it open. Each page was filled with my uncle's careful handwriting, accounts, investments, notes about properties spread across different states. This wasn't just wealth. It was a blueprint for something larger, something my cousins could never imagine existed. The phone buzzed. I answered quickly, my voice unsteady. I opened them, I whispered. The gold, the cash, the journals. What is all this? The voice on the other end was calm, almost proud. It is your uncle's true fortune. Not the flashy estates and cars he gave away, but the foundation of his empire. He trusted you to carry it forward. He believed you had the heart to protect it, not squander it. Why me? I asked, tears stinging my eyes. He barely spoke to me. Because he watched you, the voice said firmly. He knew you cared for your mother when no one else would. He knew you worked with your hands, earned your life with sweat instead of greed. He knew you would not betray him. You were his choice, Eldon, not Roland, not Cynthia. The mocking laughter of my cousins replayed in my mind, but for the first time it didn't pierce me. They thought they had won, but they had been left with toys. I was standing inside the true inheritance. Suddenly, headlights swept across the rows of storage units. My stomach dropped. I ducked behind the crates, pulse pounding. Through the slats of the door, I saw Roland's car roll slowly into the facility. He climbed out, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes scanning. Yeah, he said loudly, the loser's truck is here. He's hiding something. He must have followed me. My secret was seconds away from discovery. I whispered into my phone, Roland's here. What do I do? The voice replied without hesitation. Lock the unit and leave now. Protect what is inside. Do not let him see it. I slammed the crate lid shut, dragged the tarp over them, and locked the door with trembling fingers. Roland's footsteps echoed closer. Eldon, he barked. I know you're in there. Open up. Let me see what you've got. I forced myself to walk calmly toward my truck. It's just an old box, Roland, I said, steady despite the fire in my chest. You came all the way out here for nothing. He glared, suspicion hard in his eyes. You're lying. I met his gaze, and something inside me shifted. For the first time, I didn't feel smaller than him. I felt stronger. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, and looked at him one last time. Uncle Silas left me what I needed. That's all you need to know. Then I pulled out, leaving Roland standing in the harsh lights, fists clenched, pride wounded. At home, my mother was waiting at the window. She saw the look on my face and asked no questions. She simply said, "You've found it, haven't you?" I nodded, the weight of it all pressing down on me. She placed her hand over mine. Then you must carry it wisely. That is what your uncle wanted. That night, I realized the true climax wasn't the discovery of gold or journals. It was the realization that my uncle had believed in me when no one else did. The toolbox had been a doorway, the false bottom a key, and the voice on the phone a guide toward the truth. My inheritance was not just wealth. It was responsibility, trust, and the chance to prove that the man everyone underestimated was the one who mattered most. I barely slept. At the kitchen table, I reread my uncle's letter again and again. He had not mocked me. He had not abandoned me. He had trusted me with something far greater than money. For the first time in my life, I felt the quiet strength of being chosen. The next morning, my mother studied me over her tea. Your father always believed you were made for more than this small life. I think Silas believed the same. I nodded slowly. He left me something real, Ma. Not what Roland and Cynthia think they wanted. Something more. Something I have to protect. She squeezed my hand. Then protect it and use it to do good. That is the only way wealth has meaning. Her words guided me in the days that followed. I returned to the unit, cataloging everything. The gold was overwhelming, the cash enough to erase every debt I had ever known. But the journals, they capture me most. His thoughts, his strategies, his regrets, his hopes. It was as if he were speaking to me across time, teaching me to see the world through his eyes. I understood then why he chose me, because he wanted someone who would not be corrupted. Meanwhile, Roland and Cynthia grew restless. They noticed I wasn't crushed by my so-called worthless gift. Roland confronted me again, suspicion dripping from his voice. You've been quiet, cousin. Too quiet. What are you hiding? I met his gaze with a calm I had never known. I'm not hiding anything, Roland. I'm just living my life. He sneered, but the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed him. Cynthia called a week later, her voice sharp with cruelty. Don't tell me you actually believe Silas loved you enough to leave anything of value. He thought you were pathetic. I let her words slide off like rain on stone. Believe what you want, Cynthia. I know the truth, and that truth gave me peace. I no longer needed to prove myself to them. My uncle had seen my worth. My mother always had. That was enough. I began to use the inheritance in quiet ways. I paid off my mother's medical bills. I donated anonymously to the church that kept its doors open for struggling families. I helped prepare the community center that had once kept me off the streets as a boy. Each act reminded me that wealth means nothing unless it's put to work for good. My cousins flaunted their mansions and cars, yet their eyes stayed fixed on me, hungry, suspicious. I pitied them because they would never understand what I had gained. One evening, Roland cornered me again. Tell me the truth, he demanded. What did Silas really leave you? I looked him straight in the eye. He left me something you will never understand. Trust. For the first time, Roland had no response. As months passed, I transformed. I was no longer the man mocked as a failure. I was no longer the nephew clutching a rusty box. I was a man carrying the weight of a legacy, defined not by greed, but by purpose. The toolbox still sits in my home. I keep it as a reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts are hidden in the plainest packages. That lesson is worth more than gold. So when I tell this story, I don't tell it to boast about fortune. I tell it because of what it taught me. Never let the laughter of others convince you that you are worthless. Never assume the smallest gift carries no value. And never forget that real inheritance is not measured in estates or cars or bank accounts. It is measured in trust, responsibility, and what you choose to do when a chance finally comes your way. Uncle Silas gave me more than money. He gave me the opportunity to prove myself, and that has changed everything. If this story touched you, if it made you think about what real value in life means, do me a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything.